Okay, so we're going to be looking at how we're representing subtraction, carrying on in Unit 5 in lessons 5.1 and 5.3. These were the ones, of course, we were assigned to do. We didn't do the entire lesson because we really didn't need to. So let's start out looking at this. If I look at this first one, how they have it set up, it's 2 plus 3 equals 5. Which is similar in the fact that these are both addition problems, right? Because they're addition problems, we know that we can add in any order. So with that being said, we can go ahead and switch these out, or switch these around, I mean. So this would be -1 plus 9 equals 8. Because like I said, we add in any order, it's still the same. Now the next thing, if we look in this example here, they took the 5, right? And they know that if I add these two together, I'm going to end up with this 5, just like we did here. 9 plus -1 equals 8, or -1 plus 9 equals 8. So then they take that final answer and they subtract one of the two add-ins to begin with. So if I use that same method here and I've got 8 minus, and I can just use either one. So the first one I'm going to use is 9 equals -1. Or I can do 8 minus -1 equals 9. Well, that probably looks a little bit funny if you're not used to looking at this one in particular. But trust me when I tell you that works. And we'll be looking at why in a little bit. Okay? So let's just finish out this here. And again, we're just going to use those same patterns. And I know I can switch these around. So this would now be x plus -11 equals 7. Right? And then I would start with 7. And I would subtract x to equal -11. You see how I followed my same pattern I did in the first column. And then for the next one I would have 7 minus, and this time instead of the x, it would be the -11, and that would equal x. I would also propose that there are probably, well, there's definitely a couple of more options here. What I would add in for this, for the first column here, is I would also say that if I take 9 minus 1, because that's essentially what we're saying here, equals 8. But what's the problem with this one? Are we using the same numbers? Because that's what the directions say, to use the same numbers. And if I do this, I'm no longer using the same numbers. So that's why this one would be long. So would be wrong. So if you use this one while you're still getting the correct answer, you didn't follow all of the parameters. So this would be incorrect. But I just wanted you to be able to see that and why that's the case. Okay, moving right along. Complete each of these tables. What do you notice? Now, you're like, Mrs. De Silva, I only see one table. But I'm sure that when you opened this up and opened up the PDF from when it was originally signed, you saw the two tables. So I just had to set that up a little bit differently here. So let's take a look at this. What do I notice? Complete each of the tables. So this one says 8 plus -8. Well, we've talked about this. These are opposites. And I know when I add opposites together, I'm always going to get 0. So the value here is, of course, 0. And think about that. If you have 8 and you take 8 away, which is essentially what -8 is saying, you get 0. Which, speaking of, that's exactly what's here. 8 minus 8 is 0. And the next one, I've got 8 plus -5. 8 plus -5. Well, I know that you should have notes on how positive and negatives combine and how they react together. So you should know that I can look at this one by saying, okay, if I've got all these positives, one, whoops, that is not going to work. The blue on the purple, let's get that out of here. Let's use some green. So if I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positives, and then I've got, and there's a reason I only wrote 5 so far. Negative, 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 negative. So I've got 5 positives and 5 negatives. And hopefully you understand that each time I have those together, they are going to cancel each other out. So what does that leave me with? Remember, I had 8 positives to begin with. Well, I still have 1, 2, 3 that I didn't write here. So that would mean my answer is going to be positive 3. And then 8 minus 5, you know, of course, is positive 3. Then we've got 8 plus negative 12. So this is really essentially the same as we did in that last one. Let's look at I have 8 positives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Really, I've got 12. 1, 2, 3, 4. So just like before, every positive and negative, we call those 0 pairs, are going to cancel each other out, leaving me with 4 negatives or negative 4. Now this one here, we can do that on the number line that we're used to looking at. Start. Well, I would start at 8. I would face, I'm subtracting, so I'm going to face to the left, right? And then I have a positive number, so I'm going to move forward. Let's just write that here. Start, face, move, end. So I'm going to start, extend that a little bit to make it clearer so that you can see. Start, face, move, end. So I started at 8. I'm facing to the left. Moving forward 12. So I'm moving forward, which is in this direction. I've got 8. I get to 0. That's 8 I've moved so far. But I'm moving 12. So that means I'm going to move 4 more. Negative 4. So I'm going to end at negative 4, which is the same. So if I look at these, I find this very interesting that when I have the opposites, something's happening here. Let's look at the next set and see if it's similar. So here I've got negative 5 plus 5. There's those opposites again, so of course that's going to be 0. Now here, I've got negative 5, and I'm going to take away 5 negatives. So if I've got 5 negatives, let's look at that. 1, I get with the blue again. Sorry. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 negatives. And then this part here says to take away 5 negatives. I'm going to just take them away. I'm left with 0. Okay. Negative 5 plus 9. Negative 5 plus 9. So if I've got 5 negatives, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 negatives, and I've got 9 positives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5 are going to cancel. I'm left with these. I'm left with 4 positives, so that would be positive 4. But we want to make a bet that this one would give us positive 4, right? So let's draw our number line. I'm going to start, face, move, end. I'm starting at negative 5. I'm facing to the left. And I'm going to move back, because that's a negative 9. So So we move back 9 places. So if I start at -5, and I'm going to face to the left, and then I'm going to move back. So I'm going to move in this direction, move back 9. Well, -5 to 0, that's 5 places, right? If I've moved 5 out of my 9, I still have 4 to go. So that means I'm going to end at +4. And look at that. That's exactly what I expected, right? -5 plus 2. -5 plus 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 negatives. 2 positives. I cancel those out. And what am I therefore left with? 0 pairs. I'm left with 3 negatives, which is, of course, -3. And then this -5 minus -2. That's really weird to look at, huh? Let's do this one on the number line as well. So start face, move end. I'm going to start at -5. I'm going to face to the left. I'm going to move back 2. So where am I going to end? So I am starting at -5, right? I'm facing, of course, to the left because I'm subtracting. And that number is negative, so I'm moving back, which is in the other direction. And I'm moving back 2. So I'm not going to go very far. Remember, if I'm going in this direction, I'm getting closer to 0. So this is 5 spaces away from 0. I've moved 2 closer, so that leaves me at -3. So I end at -3. Look at that. They're the same. So what do I notice? Well, I noticed a couple of things. First of all, so here they are where we can actually compare them, okay? So how are these similar? Well, they're the opposites, right? We know if we add opposites, we're going to end up with 0. And here we're just simply taking that away. I know that, wait a second. I know that this one was probably the most confusing, but if you think about it, if I've got 5 negatives and I take 5 negatives away, I'm just going to be left with plain old 0. So that would be how these make sense. Okay, so let's look at these. Okay, I've got a positive number, take away a negative. Positive, take away that number. Positive, I'm not taking away, I'm adding the negative. Remember how they canceled each other out? And let's look at what, actually let me switch out this color here and here. And then I've got -5, and I have more positives. So what happens here? More positives. Left me with a positive answer. More positives. Left me with a positive answer. Interesting. And then, of course, when I just take this away, 8 minus 5, I know I'm of course still going to have a positive answer, right? I guess the really puzzling one is right here. So I think what we need to think about is that we're taking away more than we have. Taking away more negatives than we have. So if we take away let me redo that. If we take away extra negatives, we get positives. Interesting. So I think the last set. So let's look at our last set here. We've got 8 plus -12. 8 take away 12. So in this one, we've got more negative, basically. And then the answer for both is negative. What about here? Still more negative. And then we've got this weird thing going on here. Well, I didn't take away all my negatives, so it's still more negatives. Just write that first. What do I notice? Well, first I notice that adding opposites is the same as subtracting the original. Okay. The thing that we would notice here is that when adding more positives than negatives, answer is positive. I'm going to hold off on that last thing until we, so I think the thing that we're in, so when there's more negatives than positives, answer is negative. So it's kind of like we've got a rule of who's going to take over. Remember we were talking about the grumpy negatives and the positive positives? Well, it makes sense. If I'm in a room with a lot of grumpy people, then probably everybody in the room is going to be extra grumpy. And if I'm in the room with a lot of positive people, they should hopefully be able to turn around those grumpy people. So it makes sense. Let's think about this. So here I've got two separate rooms, and I've got lots of grumpy people. Blah, negatives, yucky, and only a couple positives. What's going to happen? We're just going to be negative and grumpy. Right? And then over here, if I've got all these bright, cheery people, oh, look at them, so positive. So fun. Positives. And I've only got a couple of negative people. Well, I would hope that all these positive people can cheer up those grumpy people, cheer them up, and make them all positive and happy. Yay, right? Well, that's what we're going with, and that's how you should be thinking about this.